Welcome to the Mom Files. I'm Hav,
And I'm Aaliyah.
and today we're talking about something that happens all the time, especially in the mom space, and that's comparisons, comparing motherhood, what our children are doing, anything. And especially as with the last few episodes, we've really been talking about the effect of social media. So we're going to kind of delve into the trap of comparing and what it can be like, especially being a mom who has raises your children maybe differently than those around you. I know for me, there's been a lot of times where I've compared my child or the way that I parent with another parent, or I've seen other parents do it with me and my child. And I know there recently we've talked about this a lot, but I was talking to another mom and our kids are older. So honestly, don't even know why this came up in topic, but about sleep training and about how her kids go to their room at 7:30 p.m. on the dot every night and they don't leave their room until 7:30 a.m. and she gets her free time at night and she gets her free time in the morning, and how amazing that is for her. And she wasn't telling me that to say that I need to do that, but that was what she did for her sanity. And I definitely caught myself comparing my decisions and the choices that I made when Azzy was younger and even now, and being like, okay, well, am I doing this wrong? Who's right and who's wrong? Which honestly shouldn't even be a question if you really think about, because why are we comparing? We say all the time, do what's best for your family.
Mhm.
When Azzy calls me, I'm gonna go to her. But that's what works for me, right? We're trying this. She's in her room by 9:30 and she doesn't leave her room until her nightlight turns green, things like that. And so just hearing that her kids comply and they go to their room because this is how she like trained them to do it, there was an automatic comparison in my head of, oh, well, maybe if I did better as a mom, which again, why is that better? Not necessarily. It's what works best for you, but what could I have done better as a mom so that my kid could let me sleep?
Mhm. 100%.
Yeah. Do you have anything?
Yeah, I definitely have done a lot of it unintentionally, like you were just saying, like, it was so easy. It's so easy when someone says something to instantly start to feel judgments or opinions about it, but I definitely went through this more internally, like, I especially when Dash was younger, I
Mhm.
tried so hard not to compare and not worry about other people's thoughts and opinions that I felt like I was then worried about, like, it made me more worried about it because I felt like I was overly trying not to think about it because I really wasn't worried and, like, trying to compare, but it just kept happening, and then I felt like the more I was like, "Oh, I don't wanna compare," it just, like, kept coming up, especially when, like I said, when he was younger and I was nervous he wasn't hitting certain milestones. It's like you
Mhm.
said, it's like, "Oh, what am I doing wrong? What are they doing that I should be doing," etcetera. Like, I just felt like there were so many things. So, yeah, I definitely experienced it, but I felt like a lot of it was my own, like, issues of just
Yeah.
hoping that everything's normal, in quotes, whatever normal is.
And there's a study, and I would have to actually look up the research, but I believe there is a study that says the more that you tell yourself not to think about something, the actually more that you obsess about it. Fun fact of the day. But and I know you say you put it on yourself, and I say that a lot too. Like I put a lot of this on myself of, for me, it's a lot of it is the sleep thing because sleep is so important for me. But there's things about, her attitude or how she reacts to certain things, or her not wanting to leave the park while another kid just up and left with no problem, right? But I'm curious your thoughts on how much of this is actually put on us by social media and other moms, and almost like invalidating our feelings, or to, yeah, like how much do you think you putting that on yourself of comparing and feeling bad for comparing and whatnot actually might have been more so because that's what's done by moms constantly. We're hard on ourselves, right? But I know we can be harsh on each other.
Yeah, I definitely think it comes a lot of it comes from social media and other moms and stuff, and I think it too is because I feel at least the way I was where I grew up, it felt like women always were kind of pitted against each other. And so sometimes, even if they aren't meaning to say it that way, I just take it that way. And I think
Mhm.
that's a big part of it where I do think, maybe they're saying something like, I for example, with breastfeeding, maybe they're like, "Oh, I didn't find breastfeeding that hard."
Mhm.
And then I take it badly, but sometimes I think they're just trying to share their experiences or be like, "Oh, well, that's not what happened for me," even though but it can come off wrong. So I do think there is a lot of the way it's worded or how it's said that
Mhm.
we might not intentionally, but it does seep in, especially on social media. Someone makes a post, like you said with sleep training, if they say like,
Mhm.
"Oh, I did sleep training this way," when you read it, it kind of makes it sound like my way's superior or this is the only, and so I do think there's a lot of that when it comes to words that are used.
I think you make a great point. It's what you say and more so
Mhm.
how you say it, not necessarily what you say. Because I think that for me too, that's a lot of things where I'll start comparing myself of like, "Oh, I'm not doing this," or, "Ooh, I'm doing this way better than the next person." But a lot of it is definitely like offside remarks that aren't
Mhm.
intended to hurt you necessarily or even hurt the person that they're talking about. And I've been guilty of it too, where,
Right,
you see a kid behaving a certain way in the grocery store and you're automatic, not my kid.
right.
She would not, things like that, where you're not like, oh, you're a bad mom, but like, this is how we do it in my family, right? The sleep training, the nursing. I know for me, nursing was so easy,
Right.
like unbelievably easy. And I definitely know that when other moms would be like, oh, like, even just checking in on me, "How are you?" Nursing was so hard for me. Me even just being, like,
Mhm.
brushing it off, right? That can be a way to, like, negatively make them think that they're lesser because it was harder for them, where it's just how our bodies work, versus maybe wording and be like, "Oh, thanks for checking in, like, this has actually been one of the easier parts of the journey for me, my body, just naturally." But we don't think to talk like that because we're not children and we're not holding everybody's hands, right? We're tired and there's so much going on. But I think you make a really good point how you say it.
Yeah, and I think too, like I know like you said, I'm notorious for just trying to relate to people. Like I want you
Mm.
to feel like I understand you and stuff. And so sometimes I feel like it comes across as invalidating or
Mhm.
just and so yeah, I agree. I think it can be so easy to do. But I think it's also a reminder for us, like for me, I try and remind myself when people are talking to me, like they aren't doing it to make me feel bad. Like they're just sharing their experiences. So sometimes I think it is a good reminder that and I do think part of it is the climate that we're living in. It feels like everything's so negative and angry. And so
Yeah.
I'm afraid everyone's coming off to me as negative and angry, but I'm like, a lot of times that's not actually the case. Yeah, so I agree with you.
Yeah, and I think the social media impact of it too is when we're saying things that without social media maybe wouldn't have even sparked any kind of thought, right? But sleep training is such a big one. I
Yeah,
know on my social media, and these social media influencers who are sleep training influencers, they're making money off of it,
right,
which I have to remind myself. So of course they're going to say, you're doing this wrong with your kid because you need to be getting my course and doing this, this, and this. So then you separate that. Somebody comes over to my house and says, give her, you should just try giving her a bottle and putting her in the crib.
right,
I automatically go, oop, I was just reading on social media, I'm doing it all wrong. And now you think that I'm doing it all wrong. And maybe I do need to spend all my money and all my time focusing on this. And maybe I'm a bad mom because I'm doing it differently. Whereas in
right.
reality, they're just saying, hey, like you look stressed out. Maybe give it a try. And I know for me, a lot of times it's hard for me to get advice that I don't want because then it makes me like, I'm like, okay, well, I'm wrong.
Right.
No.
I also hate getting advice that I don't want, and so a lot of times I do try and just like, "Oh, thank you," but I think you made an excellent point. It's like the moms that are struggling feel unseen and are ashamed, but at the same time, it's like, for example, because I had a pretty good obviously, there was moments that are rough, but I had a good breastfeeding journey as well. Then you also feel like the moms that are doing, in quotes, "well," feel pressure to stay that like, they don't feel like they can feel that way, or they feel they feel guilty for it or whatever it is. And so I do think there is it really causes a divide between the women. And I do think that's where it kind of comes from, what we were talking about earlier, where we're the harshest to each other. I think the more we divide ourselves, it's just hard. Feels like we're not allowed to have both joy and struggle. Like you
Yeah.
can't, it's like you can either be in the happy group or you can be in the sad group, but
Yeah.
you can't have both
No,
when it
serious.
comes to mom life.
Or only finding moms that mom just like you. I
Right.
know I had somebody who asked me, she was like, "Do you let your kids play with kids whose parents parent differently than you?" And I think at first my reaction was like, "Well, yeah, why would I wanna put my kid around another kid who's parented differently because it goes against what I am saying?" But then the more that I think about it, why are we, like, separating ourselves, like you said, into these groups of, like, either we're doing it right and you're doing it wrong? I have so many friends who parent their kids so differently, but we were so close before we all had kids that it's not even a thought to me. But the more that I think about it, as he gets to see so many different types of families
Right.
and lifestyles and discipline types, and whether we agree with them or we don't agree with them, I think it can be really good for us as moms and for the kids to see that like everything is and not everybody's treated the same way. Not
Right.
everybody has the same family. Not everybody has mom and dad in the house. There's like so many different things. Whereas if I just keep you in this bubble with like-minded families, you're never going to see anything different.
Yeah, and I think that also is a good reminder that it reminds us as adults that just because we do it one way doesn't mean it's the only way to do it and that's the right way to do it. So I'm like, just because someone's parenting differently from you doesn't mean it's wrong and doesn't mean what they're doing is bad. It's just
Yeah.
different, Because I think when you do start to separate yourselves, it's kind of like you're turning them almost into like a villain, you're being like, well, what they're doing is wrong or bad, and I don't want, and I'm like, that's not entirely the case. You might not want to live like that, but I'm like, that doesn't, and obviously there's some things that are don't
Right.
fall in those, but a lot of the stuff, it's like, just because, for example, maybe it's a single mom doesn't mean the way that she does it is wrong. It's just different because her life is way different from yours. So,
Right.
yeah, I think that's an excellent point that it can be easy to be like, well, it's not like us. But at the same time, it's like you can learn a lot from other people.
Yeah.
And it's just a good reminder for us as adults that there's a lot of ways to do things.
Exactly. And I think but that's it with the comparison trap is like, I know when I first started my motherhood journey, I thought there was a lot of comparing going on, but then I realized you can't compare apples and oranges, right? We parent so differently. And thankfully, in our friend group and the people that are around us, there is no like dangerous aspects to any of them. So I
No,
get
no.
to see a lot of different parenting, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you get to see a lot of different parenting and to then also have those same people who are parents who parent different, maybe they sleep train, maybe their kids being in daycare, maybe they weren't breastfed, maybe there's a lot of things that can be
Yeah.
done very differently. And then having those parents tell me that I'm a good parent and vice versa, I think that really helps. At least it's helped me learn that, like, what are we comparing for,
Right.
right? We talk about all the time, Dash and Azzy's infant stages, very different. We don't need to compare. They're literally different humans. It's not something you did. It's not something I did. We actually
And they are
parent
different.
differently, and they're
Yeah.
very different.
And it's funny because it's like they are different personality-wise, but I'm like, I think people should also take into account where you're living. I mean, Hav and I are living in different states, like, we're doing like, I'm like, there's so many factors to why things are different. So I do think that's a great point. It's like, yeah, you just can't compare. It's like they're so different. And it did start getting easier for me when, like, something I really told myself, it was like, he's on his own timeline. And when he was starting to make the milestones on his own timeline, it was like, okay, who cares about what's happening? He'll get there when he gets there. And that's what we've been doing and it's worked. And it can be hard. And I think part of it is hard because as humans, we're just so wanting to like get to the next step. Like, okay, come on, like run, walk, talk,
Right.
like all of
Yeah.
that. But it's like, it's just taught me to be patient. And it's like
Yeah.
the timeline doesn't have to be quickly, but that doesn't make it wrong.
Right.
Um, so yeah, it is, but it can be hard because especially when you're on the social media and someone's like, oh, look, my baby's walking at 6 months. And you're like, oh, that's good. And you're
Yeah.
happy for them. But then you're like, oh, what about like mine? But I will say one last thing to kind of add on is on that same point. Sometimes I do like to compare. So, cause you don't really have Like, I don't know where we're supposed to be at. I haven't had other kids, things like that. So sometimes it is nice to be like, okay, we're at least in the realm of where you're supposed to be, or like, this is where we're headed. Because I do think there is a negative, but I think a lot of times we forget the positive comparison, which is allowing us to know, like, okay, like if I, like, for example, if, you know, we were, if Dash was Azzy's age and he wasn't talking and I didn't know that he should be, I'm like, that might be something I would want to look into more. So I do think there is some pluses to it just for the, you know, making sure that you're taking care of your kids health wise and stuff.
Yeah. No, that is a good point. Or even, I mean, there's like you said, there's healthy comparisons.
Mhm.
Even if you're not even looking to change your child's behavior or your
Right.
parenting behavior, I have fun and I think I have a really I love the human condition, right? I like understanding human brains and like why they work. I love asking people's like how old their kids are.
Right.
So many kids of the same age act so differently.
Yes.
And it's just so interesting to like not even be like, "Oh, well, you're parenting this way, so your kid's like," but like, "Okay, this one's 2, that one's 2, that one's 2, and you're all doing completely different things." We're
Yes.
human. Very curious how you're gonna grow up to be your own human because that is literally what you're doing because you are a human. But yeah, no, I think there's definitely positive comparisons. I think where it then becomes
Yes.
an issue is when you fall into
Yes.
literally, like, telling yourself that you're doing things wrong and stuff like that. And I know
Mhm.
I've talked about I feel really bad sometimes when parents compare their kids to Azzy on certain things. She's not perfect at everything. But it is always that like, oh, she talks so well, she climbs so well. How old is she? She's only 3. Oh my god, my kid's 3 too. When's their birthday? Oh, how'd you do that? That's when it's like okay,
Right.
there's nothing that I just helped cultivate. She likes to climb. I stand under her when she climbs.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. I think there's once it becomes a trap of like you comparing and questioning your worth and things like that, that's when it becomes an issue. And I think that kind of leads us into how, you know, if maybe you are someone that you are kind of in the comparison trap. I think one of the first things you can do to protect your peace is either leave a conversation if it is making you feel that way, because sometimes that's just the best thing for you. Or if it comes on social media, it might be time to unfollow the accounts that are overwhelming you. Or maybe if you're not ready to unfollow, maybe you mute them, or, you know, maybe you only check them once a week, something like that. Cause maybe you do still really like those people, but you're just not in the right headspace. So
Mhm.
that's definitely one thing I think you can do to protect your peace if you are kind of in that comparison trap.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're like me and you don't like advice, don't ask for. No, I'm kidding. I think it's fair to want to complain about some things
Mhm,
or, express that you're having a hard time with some things and not necessarily need advice. So
mhm,
I think there is also, like you said, surrounding, if you, for social media, if it's not coinciding with what you need mentally, taking a break from it, but also with your friends, again, communicate like, hey, this is something that I just need to get off my chest. I'm not looking for a solve. And then that was a big one for me when we were going through like deciding to co-sleep or whatnot. I would complain a lot about not getting sleep and my friends automatically were going into fix it mode and you should try this. And I tried all of that. So then the next time being like, hey, I'm not going to change anything. I'm just really tired. Just being upfront that like, hey, I just want to complain a little bit or whatever the case, it might not be complaining, but I think communication, like we always say, is a really big one for helping yourself. But
mhm,
then I think we also can think about how we respond to people and
mhm,
starting and initiating that change, right? So
mhm,
I know for me, I like to fix things for my friends too. I
mhm,
always want
me
to give
too.
advice. I'm trying to more now, go with the like, that's hard.
Mhm,
How are you doing? How are you feeling? And then opening it up, like, would you like some examples of things that I tried that maybe did work or didn't work for me, you might want to try. And if they want the advice, then great. But I'm not giving it to you. I'm not saying this is what worked for me. I'm just saying these are things that I learned that I tried. Some worked for me, some didn't. We're not comparing. Here's just my research kind of
mhm.
thing if you want it. But I think staying away from pushing that on people unless they are asking for help is important.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, like you said, being kind of like a soundboard in support. So, like, I know for some things that helped me when, I was going through, how I was like, I remember feeling like that. You're not alone in this. Remember, like, you're doing great. Like, sometimes moms just need that little, like, I know for me, it was just nice sometimes to hear, like, hey, you're doing a great job, where you're at right now. Like, sometimes that is all you need. But I think, too, with that, it's trying to find some solidarity in where you're at. So maybe if you don't have mom friends in person, maybe you find that, online. Maybe it's, I don't know, maybe you do find it in person. There's a lot of places, but I do think finding a space that you can be real honest and whatnot can help just because, like Hoff said, sometimes you just need to get it off your chest. You aren't really looking for advice or, and you just want to be like, this sucks, and that's okay. But I also think it's just a reminder to be gentle with yourself. Like, your experience doesn't have to match anyone else's, especially when it comes to social media, and most of it's a highlight reel. So remember, you're the perfect mom for your baby, and no one else can do it the way
Yeah.
you can. So, it can be so easy to get caught up. But I think, yeah. And when you are starting to feel like it's just a reminder that you know it's best and you're in your situation, you're not in those people's situation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is all really important. And I would just add when if you do, I know I joined because my good friends were not having children when I
Right.
and Aaliyah, you probably express this more than I can. I remember when you got pregnant and you had Dash, you were like, "Oh, like I understood what you were saying, but I didn't understand what you were saying." Like, I
Mhm.
felt for you, but I didn't know what it felt like, and I had my mom Facebook groups and stuff, but the one thing about that is to protect my peace, I actually didn't post in them. I would read and get solidarity from knowing that there was other people out there doing it like me, but some people are cruel, and I did not want that feeling of
Right.
hating somebody that I didn't know because they commented something rude or whatever.
Mhm.
There's lots of Facebook groups and Instagram groups and stuff like that where it's monitored and people aren't like that. But that just to say it is a very big difference of knowing that your friend is going through something when you haven't gone through it.
Mhm.
You can be empathetic and you can be understanding, but it's not quite the same thing as talking to another mom who
Right.
doesn't get any sleep and
Yeah.
truly is in it.
Yes. And I think that's a good point. I think maybe if you aren't a mom yet, or maybe you're a new mom and you don't have other mom friends, stuff like that, it's something that Hoff said earlier. You can be like, that sounds really hard. How are you doing? Like, maybe you aren't trying to relate, but you're just still trying to be that sounding ear. Because yeah, it is not, I agree. Because I would try to understand, but it's just you don't understand unless you're in it. But to kind of add on to that too is when Hav was talking about the groups, you might have to trial and error a little bit because there are some mom groups out on social media that are, like Hav said, people are mean and toxic and mean. And those are literally the opposite of what we want you to join, because that's the opposite of what we're talking about. So, yes, definitely you might have to shop around, kind of like a therapist, figure out ones that work for
Yeah.
you, read comments, things like that. But yeah, you'll find, but it is good to actually find unity with other people that actually know what you're going through.
Yeah. And if that's something that you, as a listener, maybe would like help with, I know I follow a few groups that are very, very popular and very well known, and I'd be more than happy to share those if that's something that you're looking for.
And if you're listening and you have some that you really love and like to recommend for us, let us know because we'd love to keep those in our backlog for us or other moms that might need it, because like we've just said, we can't do it without each other. So we got to unite together.
Absolutely. Talking about all the comparison stuff, I think just to kind of round it out, I think we say this all the time, right? But protect your peace. Don't have conversations. Honestly, refraining from conversations with certain people where you know that it's just not going to be a beneficial conversation, or where you will start comparing, whether it's because they are comparing or you just get that urge to maybe steer the conversation somewhere else. Like we talked about, find solidarity, but I think a good find solidarity and not sameness. I think the important thing of a lot of these groups that we're talking about is they're families who understand that we're not all parenting the same way. It's when you get that trap where it can be really negative. to seek out those who are compassionate and real and honest, not people who are looking for like the clickbait answers and stuff like that. And then most importantly, I would say be gentle with yourself. This is hard. It's really, really, really hard. I don't think there is any mother out there who would say that this is absolutely easy. And it's really easy to get into that comparison trap, even with your really close friends. You got to work at not doing it.
Mhm.
So be gentle with yourself. Also, make steps to word things in a way that can help other moms not feel compared. We're where it starts, right? So just keep in mind you're like Leah said, you're doing your best.
Mhm.
You are the only mom that can mom your parent the way that or parent your kid the way that they need to be parented.
Yeah.
So we definitely are here for you. Let us know if you want any of those groups. Please add any of them.
Yeah.
Aaliyah, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, this is your reminder that motherhood does not need to be a competition. We are a community and we are honestly so lucky to have each other. And so, thank you for showing up, however, your journey looks like, because we feel you. And if you are stuck in feeling a comparison, remember that you are doing enough. And like Hav said, it's kind of a mental battle that you constantly, are grappling with yourself. So, we are rooting for you. And yeah.
Stay tuned. Next episode, we are still working on a little bit, but we do have a surprise for you. So please do make sure that you come into our next episode ready to hear some news and discover the topic that we come up with.
We'll see you
Okay.
then.
Bye.
Bye.